how to plot a point on a three-dimensional coordinate system. So we have two pictures. So before we do three-dimensional, I want to talk about 2D. So we have this graph, x-axis and a y-axis, and I have the graph of a linear function or a linear equation. So do you see that there are two intercepts? So the equation is y equals to 3 over 2x plus 2. So x-intercept, we have a point at negative 3 comma 0. So negative 3 comma 0. So at the x-intercept, y is equals to 0, right? So x-intercept, again, we have to warm up from two-dimensional. X-intercept is a point on the x-axis. At that point, y must be equal to 0. And then at the y-intercept, which is a 0 comma 2, at the y-intercept, y equals to some value, x must be equal to 0. All right, so at the x-intercept, y must be equal to 0. At the y-intercept, x must be equal to 0. Let's take a look at the first picture. So the first picture, we have a box, three-dimensional, and there are 8 corners. So let's take a look at the 4 corners on the bottom, and then we take a look at the 4 corners on top of the box. So the first one that I would like to start to look at is the origin. So this point is definitely 0 comma 0 or 0. Okay, because that is at the origin, so x, y, and z coordinate, they are all equal to 0. And then let's take a look at this point. So just follow my lead. So the second point, do you see that I just drew a point on the x-axis? So that is a point on the x-axis. Just like the two-dimensional that we have at the x-axis, x is equals to some value, and then they let that value to be equals to a, and then everything else must be equal to 0. So that's why the y and the z coordinate are equal to 0. And then at point Q, so point Q is at not at the x, y, or z axis. So point Q, so if you take a look at point Q, they have some x value and then some y value, and then the z is equals to 0. How come the z is equals to 0? Because the point is on the xy plane. So do you see that this is actually the xy plane? At xy plane, at xy plane, z is equals to 0 because the point is not lift up. You didn't pick up the point, just like the 2 points I have in my yellow picture. So do you see that the negative 3, 0 and the 0, 2, at that point, this is a two-dimensional, z is equals to 0. You didn't lift up or you didn't pick up those 2 points, right? So that will be a point Q. And then the next point, I have a point right here. So that is a point on the y-axis. So y is equals to some value. That some value is equals to b. And then the x and the z, they are equals to 0. So basically, if you take a look at the 4 points on the bottom, the z are all equal to 0 because they are all on the xy plane. They are on xy plane. You didn't lift up or you didn't pick up, you didn't raise those 4 points. That's why z is equals to 0. And then, so allow me to change color real quick, and then we want to look at the four corners on top. So the first one that I want to look at is this point, the one on the z-axis. So the one on the z-axis, so this is a point on the z-axis. So z is equals to some value. That value is equals to z, whatever that is. And then x and y must be equal to 0. And then the next point that I want to look at is this point. So this point, we have we have the x coordinate equals to a, and then the z coordinate is equals to c, and then y is equals to 0. So this a corresponds to this x value right here, and then the z corresponds to that value right here because you lift up that point from the xy plane, and then y is equals to 0. And then the next point that I want to look at is right here. So this point, how do you get from this point? So this point, A, B, and C, they are both equals to some value because this point is not on the X, Y, or Z axis. So of course, we have some value for the X, Y, and Z. So this one, we go X unit, so which they call that an A right here. So this is 8 units. So let me just try to use a pointer. So they start at X. So just look at my yellow pointer. Do you see that? Look at my yellow pointer on the picture. So they start at x equals to a, and then they go right here. So that is y equals to b. So from this 0 to this corner, that is b values. The distance is b from 0 to here. So that's why this is a b. And then they pick that point up. So do you see that there is a yellow point? They pick up that point by c units. So that's why this is c. So that explains this point. And then the last one is right here. So at that point, the y and the z, they are not equal to 0. So the y refers to this value. You already lift up that point. So that's why the z coordinate is equals to c, and then the x is equals to 0. And then, oh, why is this x equals to 0? Why? Because this point is right here, right? Corresponds to here, right? This point is, do you see this? The red line? The x coordinate is right here. So if you look all the way down, what is x? X is equals to 0. So that's why at the point R, x is equals to 0. So now it's time for us to do some practice. So I have another picture right here. I want you to give me the coordinate of each corner. So how about this? We start with the bottom. So we start with point A, and then we do point B, and then we do a point C. They already gave us the point C, and then we do a point D. How's that? So we have A, B, C. They gave us C, so -4, -3, no, not -3, -4, +3, and -5, and then D, we don't know. Okay. So for point A, okay, so do you see that these 4 points, they all share the same characteristic? I shouldn't say they all share the same characteristic. I should say they all share the same z coordinate. Do you see that this point is right below, they just fall below, like sink below the xy plane by how many units? Take a look. It's like when you take the elevator, it's like you go to a level -1, right? -2 and then -3 to pick up your car. So how many levels did they go down? 5, right? So the z coordinate must be all -5. Another way to interpret this is this point is at z is equals to -5, and then they are all on the same plane. So that's why for the other 3 points, the z must be -5. And for point A is on the so for point A, point A is on the z-axis. So on the z-axis, z is equals to -5, and the other 3 coordinates must be all 0. Okay, so we just take care of point A. And then at point B, so so we have z equals to -5. What is x equals to? So x is equals to, which point is easier to get? Look, from here to here. This is 3 units wide, so that means this must be a 3. So I know B must be a 3. And then at point B, what is x equals to? That is perpendicular to the z-axis. So since A, we have x equals to 0. So that's why at B, we also have x equals to 0. What about point C? Point C, we got it. And then at point D, so at point D, x from the coordinate to this mark, that is x equals to -4. And then what about y? There is no negative y, right? So it looks like to go from the origin to point D, you go 4 units on the x, and then you go 5 units down straight. So that's why there is nothing at y coordinate. Okay, let's switch color. What should I use? Let's use purple. And then we also have 4 points on top. So let's label these 4 points. So we have 4 points on top, and then let's call this E, and then we call this F, and then we call this G, and then we call this H. E is easy. E is all 0 because E is at the origin, right? Okay, the four corners on top, they are on the xy plane, so they are on xy plane, right? So this plane right here, this plane right here, so that is the xy plane, right? So allow me to erase that, otherwise the graph will look too messy. They are all on xy plane. So what else do you know when we have point on the xy plane? The z, they are all equals to 0. Okay. And then let's take a look at a point F. So at point F, we have a z equals to 0, and then looks like the y, we have to go 3 units from the 0 to point F. We have to go 3 units. So the y coordinate is F. So the x, we didn't move forward, we didn't move backward. So x must be equals to 0. And then g, so g, this is how we go from g. So the x, you have to move 4 units, and then 3 units for the y. So x is equals to -4, y is equals to 3. And then the point h is easy. You just move the x coordinate by -4, right? The y, you don't have to move y. From the origin to the h, all you have to do is you take 4 units back, right? So that will be -4, and then no y, then y will be a 0. Okay, and then let me add one. You can also add this to your notes. So let me switch back to pink. So this at the very beginning, the first point. Oh, actually, you know what? That will be fine. You don't need to add that to your notes. So we will just keep the 0, put the 0 back, and then that's it for the plotting exercise. So that will be the end of this video. If you think my instruction is helpful, let me know in the comment section below. Like the video, share the video for me. Appreciate your help as always. I see you all in the next part for some exercise. See you there.